Hello everyone, this is going to be a second video that talks about flowing your text into InDesign for your magazine design project, as well as the best way to insert images, use text wraps, potentially even using paragraph styles to format a lot of your text, because it just helps to speed up the process. And I think you're going to find that this process works really well when you're dealing with multiple pages across a layout. My first video showed you about the different column grids. I'm going to go over that a little bit here as well. So I'm just going to make a new file, and you guys should already have your page, the page size, obviously you know what that is. This kind of already locked to what I had set before, so we're just going to use this 8 pages, facing pages. Remember, start at page 2. I'm going to start with a 4-column grid and just kind of keep everything how I had it set. I'm going to go ahead and set that to print just so that we know that it's something that's going to be printed and create. I'm not going to use, oops, that totally didn't work. So let me try that again. New document. I'm not sure why all that stuff didn't stick. I guess it canceled out when I hit print. So print, we're doing 9 by 10.75, facing pages, 8 pages, starting at page 2. We're going to do 4 columns. I'm going to unlock this so I can set my margins top, bottom. I'm going to make bigger. Oops, I'm going to make bigger. Let's go 0.75 inside. I'm going to make 0.75 outside. I'll just leave it 0.5, and then we want to make sure that we have a bleed. All right, let's try this again. Okay, here's our page. So this is technically your layout. You've got your 8 pages, and this side on page 2 and 3, this will be your cover. This will be the back cover, which will be the advertisement. This will be your feature spread opener. The feature spread opener is going to be a little bit different than the next couple pages, and you might have found this as you did your magazine research, but this is where the headline is, the opening image. This is sort of the thing that should draw the user in. So you really want this to be open, dynamic, very, visually interesting. And then the other pages are where, the rest of the photos and images go. So I'm not going to mess with the cover right now, because the cover really isn't going to have any linked elements. You're just going to set that up separately. And then, the advertisement will go on back here. So I'm going to start here with the feature opener. And I'm just going to use placeholder text. You guys should have had your Word document with all your text typed out and everything ready to be flowed in. And some of this is going to flow directly from page to page to page. Some of it is going to be separate. The headline, the subhead or deck area will probably be separate. You might have like a little, like a byline, like who the author is, and there might, be a couple other elements in there which will make sense. And then, the rest of the story will follow. So really, this feature opener is not going to be very heavy with text. So if I say we're going to have a big image, and I'm just going to draw boxes for this because it's, for me to download images. So I'm just going to start with a box, and I'm just going to color it gray, and anything you see gray, you're just going to assume that it has an image in it. So I'm just going to make this 10% gray so it's not completely harsh. Notice that my image, I'm using the bleed, so you want to carry over to the bleed. And then technically we'll have our headline, so I'm just going to make a text box and say headline here. Obviously, we're going to want our headline to be big and bold, and you should have kind of played with typefaces and to see, matching the style of the current magazine. What type of typefaces are using? Are they using display? Are they using something kind of funky? So let's say I'm going to use this American Scribe, and it's not, this is, you can use display typefaces to a point, and I'm just kind of making this bigger for now. I really actually don't like this at all. So let's go to something a little bit different. We can still do something that's kind of funky, but okay, so here's my headline. So obviously, we don't really want it to run over the gutter, because if we run it over this gutter and the magazine has that glue space, you're going to kind of lose your text. So how about I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. So let's instead just make this so it fits on one page. It actually has to go really, now what do I do? Okay, so that's, I guess this actually works. So say, and with a headline, you kind of want to make this visually interesting and use hierarchy and stuff. So I'm actually going to make this, let's see if this has an italic. It does not. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. My word here is a little bit bigger, and let's play with alignment. So I'm just going to do this. Obviously, my leading is terrible, so I'm going to go to character, or your leading is up here too. But I always tend to do character. And let's just, if our type size are different, let's just try 120 and see where that gets us. All right. And then I'm just going to kind of do this. So headline here. We're going to pretend that this is an article that has, like, say this is the photograph. So there's the headline that goes over the photograph. You might have an image of some kind, and then a lot of times there's going to be like something called a deck. And that's just a bunch of like a little subhead or a synopsis of the story, and it's usually about 2 or 3 sentences long. But for this case, I'm just going to add filler text because I don't have that, and I'm just going to use Helvetica. So let's just use Helvetica Bold, and then I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. We'll start here. We're just going to have this sentence, probably, this is 12 points. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger because it's not body copy. Let's make this 18 point. And I'm using my grid. So the whole point of having the grid is to use the grid. So I'm using my grid, and I'm just going to kind of put this here. And let's just pretend that this, there's a photo here or image, and this might be too big. You might make this white, however this works with the photograph. But I'm going to start my body copy here. And what I want to do, though, is I want all of my body copy, my main story text, to flow together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make, and you want to use some visual cues. So right now I have my deck here. So I'm going to start my copy here as well. So that it all kind of is aligned, you've got structure. So I'm making a text box here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a text box on all of my pages. So I'm just going, and then I want to go ahead and automatically in these bigger boxes add my column structure internally. So instead of having column, 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 I'm going to put my column within this text box. So I'm going to go to, if I hit W, actually you can't see it yet, but if I move this over a little bit, you can see that text box has an internal column, and then you'll be able to see this better as well when I start flowing text in. So I'm just holding Option in, and I'm duplicating, and I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste it over here. So I'm going to put one over here, and then I'm going to put one over here, lining it up with my grid, of course. And now I'm going to link all of these text boxes, and you guys should know how to do this, but if you need a refresher, so I'll take my black arrow, my just selection tool, click on this box, and you can link these without text. So then I click on this box, link it over here, click on this box, link it over here, and then click on this box and link it over here. So all of my text boxes are linked, starting with this first one. And now I'm going to take my text tool, and I'm going to put my cursor in here, and I'm going to fill this with placeholder text. You will fill this with your story. So this should be your typed article, but for me, I'm just going to fill with placeholder text. Now, Professor Nelson has always said only use 9-point text or body copy, and a lot of times that is something that you should follow, but there are some exceptions to that, and that all depends on the size of the X height of the typeface. So I'm going to zoom in and show you something here. So right now we have Minion Pro, which is like a very typical serif typeface, and I'm going to take this down to 9-point. I'm going to control my leading, and I've selected everything. So all of my text, I don't know why that didn't flow all the way through. I guess it doesn't really matter. But anyway, all of my text, you'll notice, is selected. I'm going to go back here and select all. All my text is selected. And you can see this is 9 over 10 point. A lot of times you might want to print this out just to kind of see, but kind of just quickly look at the size of this. And this is 9 over 10, and I actually probably want to do 9 over 11 just to open that up a little bit more. So you kind of get a feel for the size of this. If I make this Georgia, which has a high X height, the size of this looks visually a lot bigger. And I actually am going to show you this side to side so you can kind of see. So this is Georgia set at 9 point over 11. And I'm going to select this again and make this Minion Pro. Was that Minion or was it? I can't remember if it was Minion. Let's just see display. This is 9 over 11, but if you look at these, this looks a lot smaller. So if I was using Minion, I probably would go to 10 point. So let's take this up to 10 over 12, and that looks pretty much the same. So you kind of want to take a look at that. Don't just always default to 9. But I'm just going to delete this. I just kind of wanted to tell you that. And this is something we can talk about. You can email me, let me know. Does this look right? Is this too big? Is this too small? And then what I want to do is I'm hitting Command A again to select everything. My text flowed without any indents whatsoever, and yours might flow that way as well. So you want to set an indent, and instead of going in and doing a tab, you want to use the first line indent, which is right here, first line left indent. And I'm just going to bump this up to say 1/4 of an inch. And that's like a really nice indent that you've got going here. And you can see that's going through all of the hard returns, giving you that indent. The other thing I want to do, in a lot of magazines you'll notice this, that first paragraph has like a drop cap, and a drop cap is a way to sort of announce this is the start of the story. The first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to get rid of that indent because we don't want to indent for the drop cap. And then if I highlight this L and go to this thing right here, if I hover on it, you'll see that it says, that's not going to say it, but it should say drop cap. And I'm going to make my drop cap bigger. And so you can do this however many lines you want it to do. Probably going to get rid of this indent as well. Maybe get rid of this indent just because that looks funny. So there is my drop cap. So now we're starting to look like we have a story. I could technically, if this is Amandine Bold, maybe I make my drop cap that secondary typeface that I'm using. Again, you want to base this on the style of your magazine that you're working on. But just for demonstrations purposes, let's do this L is Amandine Bold. If you feel like this is too tight, like right here on this first thing, you can put your cursor in here and kern this over a little bit. So I'm going to go back to character, and this is my kerning right here. Is this working? I always use shortcuts. If you put your cursor on that first letter and hit Option and those arrows, that kind of nudges the kerning a little bit. Okay, so there we have that, and that looks pretty good. We don't have a byline. I could just, throw in another text box here by Amy Copeland. Maybe I make this the Amandine as well. Probably have to make it a little bigger since Amandine is a display type, and display type doesn't often look good. And we'll just kind of line it up here, potentially. Now, if I hit W, you'll see that turns all those things off, and I can kind of see this L is kind of bugging me. So let's do another letter here. Let's do an A, or maybe we can do, maybe we'll do an R. Oh, I lost my Amandine. There we go. Okay, I like that a lot better. So there we have the start of our story, right? And then, obviously you've got all this text, but you also, and this is an image, remember, and also you're going to have a bunch of imagery that you're going to put in here. So the reason we did the text boxes the way we did them and the imagery and the way we did that is that now we're going to add images, but we're going to do text wraps, and you'll see why in a second. So say my opening story I want to have an image that kind of starts it right here. So I'm going to draw a box. I'm going to make it 10% black to show that it's an image. Obviously, it's covering over that text, but what you're going to want to do is use a text wrap. And text wraps are awesome because they force the text to move, and you can move images around without having to worry about moving paragraphs and text boxes all over the place. So I'm going to do wrap around the bounding box, and then I'm going to give it 1/8 of an inch padding. So you can see how that kind of gave it a little padding. Now all my text is still flowing, so we're flowing to the next paragraph now. But say I decide I don't want this big picture, I want it to be here, the text flows. Say I want another box and I want this to kind of be down here, your text flows again. I don't know what, yeah, your text flows. And it just kind of keeps going. And then that way, if I want my text box here, I can do that. So say I want my text box here, but I want this to be a smaller paragraph. You can move this up so that you can have a caption right here or a pull quote. I could even, do this and have a pull quote right here. And what my text is doing is it's moving all around, and I haven't had to move a single text box after all those decisions that I've made. So I can then go back to make this image bigger. My text moves. I can see that it moved even further. And then, maybe I have a pull quote here, and then I can copy paste this text box, fill it with another photo. Notice also how I am aligning to my grid. So my text box isn't doing this, right? Because then you get this weird thing. And if I did this, that's probably okay. But again, this is a nice spot for a caption or just a little bit of white space. So then I can move this down here. And then, my text has flowed again, which is just a really nice way to set up your document, to make it easier for you to design and set up your text flow. Obviously, you'll have subheads in here, pull quotes, captions, all that kind of stuff. Those will be different type sizes and everything based on what your feature article looks like. But that's just like a really nice way to start your design, flow your text. And this would work for a project like a book or a whole magazine, or if you're working on an annual report or something like that. But another nice thing about setting your text up this way is this is also a really nice way to start experimenting with columns and grids. So I'm going to go to my pages panel, and I'm going to go to my master parent pages, and I'm going to change this grid. I'm going to change this to a 5-column grid. So if I go to layout, margins and columns, I'm going to change this to a 5-column grid. And you'll see what happens now. Obviously my story's all messed up. It's not aligning. Everything's kind of funky. It's easy for me to fix that. So this way I can just take this over here. Now I can spread this along these 3 columns if I wanted to, or if I wanted to, I have this option of making this 2 columns, and I can bring this over here and make that photograph a lot bigger. Again, I'm going to want to play with this. Maybe I move this up here so that everything's aligned to the grid. So I'm really going to be watching how aligned you are to the grid. Bring that up. And the nice thing about a 5-column grid is that what you want to automatically do is you can't, like if I made this 3 columns, that's not aligning. If I made this 2 columns, that's not aligning. But a 5-column grid is really nice because you can make this 2 columns, and then you have this nice open area here. So this could be an area for a caption for this photo. You want that empty column to always be on the outside. So maybe this image goes here, and then I just spread this either along here, and this is open for something, pull quote, whatever, or I can move this over here and then tuck this along here, bring my paragraph down again so that this kind of spreads. Everything's flowing again. And then the same thing here, I would just want to pull this to my 2 column, pull this to my 2 column, and kind of go from there with design. Same thing if I was going to make, like say I decided I wanted a 6-column grid. 6 is a little more flexible than 3, so I would definitely recommend a 6 instead. So I'm going to go back to my parent pages. I'm going to go to layout, margins and columns, 6-column grid. Now you can see that this just doesn't change too much. I can just stretch that over there. This might move here. So I could, let me look at that lined up. I could just bring this over here so that goes along 3 columns. I could even bring this over here and make this a 2-column grid. So I could totally change that to 2 if I wanted to. And then here in my bigger text, obviously I have to bring this over to the edge, and I can make this either 2 columns or I can make this 3 columns. Whatever you do to one, you want to do to the rest. You wouldn't want to have like a 2-column and a 3-column. That just looks bad. So you could change this to 3-column. And this is also, you want to kind of look at your magazine itself and see what column structure they use. But this just gives you a lot more flexibility based on how you decide you want to set your document up. So I could go over here. If I decide to keep kind of this 3-column look, I could do this as 3. So I'm going to go up here and do 3. But I could just say leave this. It's still kind of 3 columns, but this could be a pull quote. This could be a caption. Just a lot of flexibility. So that is sort of how to flow in text, how to use that text wrap. And lastly, just remember that in your preferences, you want to make sure under composition that you have this text wrap only affects text beneath checked. But that's it. Hopefully this helps. Email me if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your progress on this project.